You know, real estate is a very relationship-driven business, and one of the things I've noticed is it's so nice to look out across the crowd and see so many friends amongst our clients. And I think that's one of the things that's really gratifying in our business and for our company, that we've got such great relationships with all of you. So thank you so much for being here. My name is Gordon Hester. I'm the president and CEO of Kiemle Hagood, and I want to welcome you to our first Market Pulse event. I also want to thank Casey Brazil, our COO. The Market Pulse event was really Casey's idea, and he wanted to come up with a concept to create an event where we weren't just sharing statistics, but we were having a conversation and really looking at the dynamics of what was going on in the market. So I'm really excited about the event and excited for all of you to be here today and hear what we have to talk about. So Kiemle Hagood is in the real estate business, but our purpose is really greater than that. It's more than collecting rent and leasing and selling buildings. You know, our purpose is really to create lasting value for our customers, our employees, and the community. And it's the statistics which give you a snapshot at a point in time don't really describe the market. It's much more dynamic, and it really encompasses supply, demand, the regulatory environment, changes in taxation, and access to capital. It's not just occupancy and things like that. And we will be giving you our thoughts today on the context behind the statistics, and bring in partners that we rely on for advice in taxation, legal, and estate planning, and give you an opportunity to ask questions for them and get some clarity on where we see the market heading in 2026. So I'm asked frequently, how is the real estate market? And most of you don't want to hear my stock answer as well. It depends. And it really depends. What you really want to know is, how is my real estate investment going to perform 12 and 24 months from now? And it does depend. It depends on the type of real estate you own. It depends on the location, the condition, and it also depends on a lot of the economic and political factors that are going on in the market. And we're going to discuss submarkets today. We're going to talk about the office market, retail and industrial and medical markets. We have brokers from our Spokane, Coeur d'Alene, and Tri-Cities markets to talk about those individual markets. And what we're going to look at today, or what I'm going to look at, is, you know, real estate responds to forces, both positive and negative. And it's not unlike running your business when you're looking at what are the positive influences on my business for next year and what are the negative influences. And when I look at some of the positive things that are affecting the real estate market, you know, we're experiencing interest rate stabilization. So while rates are higher than they were in 2021, really now we can allow lenders and buyers to finance risk with more reliability, and that's positive to the market. Cap rate expansion has repriced assets, so we're seeing, you know, particularly in office and transitional real estate, some more demand for purchases in those areas. Some distress for certain product types are creating discounted acquisition opportunities. New construction has slowed down a little bit, so when new construction slows down, that increases demand on existing supply. So that's a positive influence on existing real estate investment. And real estate still retains an intrinsic value, and while there's risk, it is a tangible asset. So it generally is less volatile than other investment types. And the Pacific Northwest remains an attractive relocation option for some businesses right now. When we look at what some of the negative forces are in the real estate market, we got debt coverage ratios are a bit higher. So the cheap money is gone, and properties, you know, in a position of refinancing may experience some negative leverage. Office projects in particular can experience a significant valuation gap and cash flow gap, particularly in the central business district and larger floor plate projects. And just as the construction cost increases created a positive force for existing product, it also creates negative force relating to the cost of construction and tenant improvements. So we have to find ways where rent levels can meet some of that existing expense of remodeling. In Washington, taxation and regulatory changes are frankly unfavorable to real estate and business. Issues relating to homelessness, crime, and drug issues are also unfavorable, and the unpredictability and lack of business understanding by some of our political leaders is challenging. You know, the Association of Washington Business Pulse survey shows 44% of business owners are considering moving their personal residence out of Washington state. And while that is a snapshot in time and a survey just of their membership, that should be a kind of an alarming sentiment to all of us who are trying to buy real estate and own real estate and run companies in Washington state. And so when we get into our group discussion later on with some of our other experts, we anticipate relatively flat growth in the commercial real estate industry relating to some of the uncertainty and the pricing issues. We think the limited supply in North Idaho is going to push rental rates in that market, and certainly the more friendly regulatory environment in Idaho may encourage business to consider relocation, which should increase demand in the North Idaho market. More than ever, it's important for Kiemle Hagood to stay active and stay informed about all issues affecting real estate, and to make sure that we're connecting with our clients in ways that are valuable to you and that we are being advocates for your interest. I really hope you have an enjoyable time here. I'm really excited to hear a lot of our speakers, and I really want to thank you again for being part of this event and just for the business relationship that we have the pleasure of enjoying with you. So thank you very much. Colin.
Good afternoon. Can you all hear me fine? All right, perfect. For those who don't know me, I'm Colin Conway. I'm with our commercial property management team, and I want to say thank you for being here today. It means a lot. We're really excited that you're here. Many of you in the room already trust us to manage some of your properties, and I want to say thank you for that as well. And for those who don't know about our commercial property management, let me just tell you a little bit about our team real quick. And I apologize, I talk real fast. That's going to calm down in about 10 minutes, but I only get 5 minutes to talk, so bear with me. We've got 4 offices across 3 states, 2 in eastern Washington, Spokane and Kennewick. We've got 1 in North Idaho in Coeur d'Alene, and then 1 over in western Montana, Missoula. And we've got 20 property managers approximately spread across those 4 offices. Those property managers are supported by a team of administrative assistants as well as in-house accounting team. So anyway, some of our property managers, actually most of our property managers are here today, so if you get a chance, please grab one and say hello. So I've been asked to take a few minutes today and talk about 3 issues that we're focusing on. One of them is a real-time operating requirement for property owners in Washington State, and then the other 2 are things that Kiemle Hagood is investing in, focusing on to help us better serve our clients and increase our efficiency within our office. So first, let's talk about the Washington State Clean Buildings Act. This is a mandate from the state that applies to all commercial buildings over 20,000 square feet. That might sound small, but that impacts a heck of a lot of our clients. This mandate requires that we have energy use benchmarking as well as performance milestones. Now, this obligation requires landlords to have a designated energy manager to develop and maintain not only the energy benchmark or energy management plan, but also an operations and maintenance program, both with periodic reporting requirements. Failure to submit information that's required by this act can result in some pretty hefty fines. Now, when I say benchmarking, I'm talking about tracking the building's total energy use from utility data, and then comparing that use relative to buildings of similar size and type. So 50,000 square foot office building compared to a 50,000 square foot office building, et cetera, et cetera. Now, in practice, what this means is that we'll take the electricity and gas usage, put it into Energy Star's portfolio manager, pull that out and monitor it for metrics like energy use per square foot per year. Real exciting stuff for all of us. But that information is then taken and put into the building's operation and maintenance program, as well as the energy management plan, and then helps build a baseline so that we can track progress over the years and then report it back to the state. For Washington owners, the most effective way to reduce surprises with this is staying ahead of the timelines. When requirements are put off until it's too late, compliance becomes expensive and burdensome. This is really one of the issues that we're trying to stay focused on. So there's 2 tiers for those who don't know. The first is for larger buildings, those over 50,000 square feet. The state put a performance requirement on this tier on top of the energy plan, the benchmarking, and the operations and maintenance program. Now, that performance requirement is, you can satisfy it in 1 of 2 ways. You can either hit the energy target that the state has established, or you can go down the investment criteria pathway, which is spend some money improving the systems in the building and then get that waiver on that energy target. The second tier in this program is for smaller buildings, those between 20,000 and 50,000 square feet, and that focuses solely on the benchmarking, the energy management plan, and the O&M program. So June 1st is the initial deadline in this, right around the corner. That's going to affect those tier 1 buildings that are 220,000 square feet and over. But at the end of the day, the Clean Building Act is a data and planning requirement, and that's impacted by what's happening on the property. So consistent maintenance and system performance, which is a good tie-in for the second thing that we're focusing on, which is our Kiemle Hagood Facility Services team, and there's a couple gentlemen down here from there today. Now, most of the owners in this room already have a way that they like to have their building run, and our role is to help support them and keep that rhythm flowing. Now, we support day-to-day operations by tightening field execution, so small issues don't grow into big issues, and so that you, as the property owners, have the appropriate information to make informed decisions. Now, KHFS helps us do that. They improve our preventive maintenance consistency, they speed up diagnosis when something breaks, and they strengthen our documentation and follow-through, so we aren't guessing what happened or what's happening next. Our field techs, or the KHFS field techs, can communicate directly with our property managers in a variety of ways, but one of the most important is our software, which is Corrigo. So what we see on paper is actually what happened in the buildings. So here's the connection from the first two. So clean buildings planning and facilities execution work best when they're done together. So our KHFS team can also do the initial clean buildings benchmarking, and where it makes sense, they can help support the energy manager role as well. I don't know how many of you want to report every year, load up all that stuff into the state's website, but that doesn't sound a whole lot of excitement to me, so I'm excited for what those guys are going to do. Our job is to make this as organized and repeatable, so you're not reinventing the wheel every year. And so we reduce surprises as the compliance deadlines get closer. So we talked about execution in the field. I want to talk about real quick, and I'm sorry for I'm just blowing through this, but improving what we do in our offices. So how we move information faster without losing accountability. And artificial intelligence is the topic du jour. I'm seeing some grimaces out there already that I brought this up. We can't go anywhere, watch anything without hearing about artificial intelligence. If you watch the Super Bowl, you're probably tired of artificial ads by the second quarter. But our AI does sound like hype, and I admit that. However, 30 years ago, the internet was hype. And 20 years prior to that, the home computer was hype. But now we're all carrying a phone in our pocket that stays connected to the internet 24 hours a day. So we either learn how to embrace artificial intelligence or we're going to get left behind. So here's what AI is doing for us right now. It's helping clear the paperwork fog so our team can spend more time on planning, decision, support, and proactive communication. That's kind of high-level talk, but one of the things that we've got in our accounting software now is AI component. It helps us process our invoices faster. We're using AI to help us move faster with emails, with document preparation, reducing that repetitive tasks. It's really a big deal. The benefit to you as the client is that we're spending less time on administrative lag and spending more time on execution. So when you combine clean buildings compliance, strong field performance, and faster information flow, the result is simple. It's fewer surprises. Sorry for racing through this. If you've got any questions after we wrap up, I'll be walking around. So will our property managers, and so will our KHFS team right there. Thank you. I'm sorry. I need to give an introduction to my friend Kevin Cox over here from CliftonLarsonAllen. I'm a big fan of Kevin, so excited to hear you talk.
Morning, everybody. Good afternoon, I guess I should say. Still morning for me. The good news is you're not going to have to hear my sexy phone voice working very long because I brought a great colleague that's updated all this, and she works in the real estate department with me. So for those who don't know me, I'm Kevin Cox, CLA. I'm the managing principal for the Inland Northwest offices, which includes Coeur d'Alene, Spokane, Tri-Cities, Yakima, Wenatchee, Boise. So super happy to be here. Obviously know many of the colleagues and friends in the room as well. But I'm going to turn over to Annika, and I'll just be kind of a color commentator here. Annika.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having us today. I'm Annika Disk. I've been with CLA for 7 years now. I work closely with Kevin, primarily in the real estate industry, and we just thought this would be great. Give you guys a few updates on what's changed recently, a couple opportunities for some great tax savings, and then, of course, we're open to questions, Washington State related or otherwise. So, okay.
Everybody here is okay?
Yeah, so a couple things that we just want to, oh, saw a hand, no? Okay, sorry, just a couple things. I'm going to start off by just hitting on some of the major changes from the One Big Beautiful Bill Act. I've just cherry-picked a couple that I thought were the most beneficial to everyone here. We'll take a look at cost segregation studies, opportunity zones, and then questions. Okay. Okay, so to start off, bonus depreciation is back up to 100%, so that is a huge deal for anybody in a business. Anytime you buy something that's over $2,500, you're supposed to capitalize it and depreciate it over a set useful life. So now with 100% bonus depreciation, with the exception of a couple situations, which I won't get into, you can take that full expense in the current year. Huge benefit to people and makes a big difference when it comes to your net income. Opportunity zones are back in play and better. So we'll go into a deep dive on that, but that's a really great tax saving opportunity. Third thing, pass-through entity tax payments. For anybody that's working in Idaho, Montana, really multiple states, there's an opportunity for your business to pay the tax for you rather than you pay at the personal level. Now, the benefit to this is that at the personal level, you've been historically capped at $10,000. Now that has gone up to 40 this year, but there are AGI thresholds that will phase a bunch of people out. So just an option to have your business pay for you, you bypass that limitation and get to take the expense in the full year. Fourth thing, so qualified business income deduction was set to go away and is actually gonna stay now. That's a great one. It's 20% right off the top of your business. Of course, there's limitations. That's what we love in taxes. But just for the most part, 20%, huge benefit.
The great part about that is that the rental businesses do qualify for that piece of it too, so that has a qualified business income deduction inside the commercial space or the residential space as well.
Yeah. And another one I like to touch on, not super applicable to the real estate world, but research and development credit. So historically, you've been able to apply for the credit, take the expense, and then under the last administration, we were forced to capitalize and amortize those expenses over 5 years. So that was a pretty big detriment to businesses that were investing heavily in development, but that's back on the table. You're able to take that full expense in the current year as well as the credit. So just wanted to note that for anybody that might affect here. Okay, so taking a deeper dive into cost segregation studies, and this really goes hand in hand with 100% bonus depreciation. Now, basically the premise of a cost segregation study is when you buy a property, be it commercial or residential, you're limited to 27.5 years or 39-year life. So you take that whole property and you get to take a small chunk of that every year and recognize that cost. With a cost segregation study, what we go in is we look at components of the building that can be broken out into smaller useful lives. And when they are under 20 years of a useful life, you're eligible for 100% bonus depreciation. So that's really great because we can sometimes go in and find $500,000 of a building that can go 100% this year. It's a huge benefit to you. You get to realize a loss in the current year, which everybody loves, pay less taxes.
Depending on the type of commercial property, on a cost segregation study, we tend to find anywhere from 25 to 35% of that. Obviously, if it's just a shell of a warehouse, it's not going to be as high. But a cost seg traditionally can find somewhere around that 30% range, where you're able to write off 30% of your full spin in year one with 100% bonus depreciation. So obviously, you're recapturing your investment dollars way faster than tax savings.
Yeah, so huge benefit, particularly in the real estate industry. We do a lot of it, and our clients have had a lot of success with that method. Okay. So opportunity zones. Now, opportunity zones are not new, but they have been revamped a bit. So in this new opportunity zone 2.0, let's see here. Sorry. Okay, so it's technically effective for capital gains that happen after December 31st of 2026, but you have 180 days to actually move that money into an opportunity zone. So if you sell something in July of this year and you're thinking, I really don't want to pay taxes on this, this is a great way to do that. So in my mind, there's really 3 levels to this opportunity zone benefit. Number 1 is you realize a capital gain, be it sale of your business, sale of a property, sale of stock, anything that puts you in that position. And instead of saying, I want to pay taxes this year, you can reinvest it and you've deferred your taxes. So you owe nothing on that transaction, which is a huge benefit. Now, the second part of this comes in, if you're able to leave that money invested in that opportunity zone for 5 years, then you get a 10% step up in basis. So easy example would be that you have $1 million gain, you invest it in a qualified opportunity zone, you're able to leave it for 5 years. Year 5, now your gain is $900,000 instead of $1 million. So the flip side of that, year 5, your gain's lower, but you do have to pay taxes in year 5 on the 900. That's fine, it's still better than the $1 million, and you still got to save money for 5 years. And then the further benefit, if you leave it in for 10 years, on 10 years, any gain that investment, that $1 million that you put in has grown, is now tax-free. So, you know, that could potentially go up and up and up, and you have until 30 years to pull it out. So you could have 20 years of tax-free growth on this investment, which is really a huge benefit. And to walk this through better, I kind of put together this example, but just because we're numbers people, I like numbers. And as I said, I walked through the $1 million and said, year 5, now you're paying tax on $900,000. So in this situation, you're going to have the top tier 20% capital gains tax, 3.8% net investment income tax. So your tax is now $214,000 on that 900. But let's say you do leave it in for 10 years and it appreciates, or you leave it in for more, it goes up to $2.5 million. And when you have to go actually pay, or when you sell that money and you take it out of the op zone, you could have appreciated growth of $1.6 million, just in this example. And in that particular instance, you will have saved $380,000 on taxes. So again, it's just a great way to put your money somewhere where it can grow tax-free. And even if you don't make it to the 5 or 10 years, you're still deferring that tax for that time. And you can reinvest in something, you could go on an amazing trip, whatever it may be, but it's your money for the time. And that was kind of the end of the things we wanted to cover, but of course we're always open to questions, and we know there's a lot of changes, so happy to answer anything that has come up.
She did such a great job, there's no questions.
I've got one out here. So with the opportunity zone, it's federal taxes, but what about Washington state capital gains tax?
Yeah, great question. It doesn't actually applicable for Washington State tax as of now. As you can see with all the additional bills that Washington State's passing, they're not looking to give any incentive to have any tax savings. So there's no op zone deferral for Washington State. It's only federal purposes. Go ahead.
Is there any reconfiguration of the actual opportunity zones themselves?
Great question. That's actually happening versus Zone 1 versus Zone 2. So as of July 1st, the governor of each state has to go back and solidify the new opportunity zones. So there is a chance that they will change. So if you have a current development that you're hoping to fund inside of Zone 1 and you're worried that it might not still be in Zone 2, we would highly recommend you go to Zone 1, although your deferral is only through this year. Not very fun. So the likelihood of it changing significantly we think is very small, because honestly the governors have lots on their plate that they're not really going to go and change too many different zones, but it does have until July 1st of this year for Zone 2 to be established. Go ahead.
Are you still required to double your investment after you make the initial purchase?
That's actually not necessarily true. That's only on buying land or a building that's in existence. Other than that, you don't have to actually have more than 50% of your money going to improvements. So there's quite a bit of different rules on that part of it, so it does not have to be more than double, no. No, not for Zone 1 or Zone 2. Please.
How can you go, you said you could go into a building and reinvest how many years back
Yeah. How many years back can we do a cost seg? So traditionally I would tell you, if you've been in the property for 20 years, and it's a 39-year life, you're more than halfway through it already, it doesn't make sense to do a cost seg most likely. So I would tell you if you're in the first 5 years of that property, And again, depending on the size of the project, you know, if it's $1 million building and you're 6 or 7 years in, it's probably not worthwhile to do a cost seg. If I'm only breaking out 30%, you've already captured enough of that for the time value of the money of the cost seg. But if it's a $7 or $8 million project and it's 3 or 4 years old, no problem at all. I highly recommend looking at it. The best part is we can do a benefit analysis free of charge to show you what the benefit is versus the cost of doing the cost seg.
So I'm curious on the cost segregation, so doing TI in the tenant space, does that apply, say you're doing bathrooms or whatever, or what?
That's correct. So whoever's doing the improvement parts of it would be the beneficiary of that. So even though if I bought the building and I'm giving $200,000 to improvements for my tenant coming in, the $200,000 would be on my dime. So not only would I get the building purchase, but I get the $200,000 TI. If the tenant's paying the TI, and even if I keep that TI after the fact, I can't put that in my initial cost seg.
So, well, I was thinking from the point of view of the landlord doing the spend.
If the landlord does the spend, absolutely. So let's say I pay $2 million for a building, and in order to get the tenant that I want, I have to put $400,000 on top for improvements to get them in. So now really at 2.4, that full value is in the cost seg, yes.
Typically, what's the duration of 7 years, 8 years? What is it?
Right now, it'd be qualified under the qualified personal property piece, and it'd be 15 years, and I'd take 100% bonus and write it off.
Okay.
If you do an opportunity zone purchase, does it limit your ability to do a 1031 exchange?
It doesn't limit it, but it's not the best solution for it. Combined, it's not the best tax advice. I'm already getting deferral if I put it into an op zone. There's no reason to take 1031 and take lower basis. I'd rather recognize the gain to the fullest extent, and then put that into an op zone to defer it for the 7 years, and then let that grow tax free after a 10-year period. If I 1031 and I'm going to pick up something anyway, I'll pick up the gain and I can put that into an op zone. But I can't do a 1031 and wipe out my whole cap gain in a 1031 exchange and still do an op zone because there's no cap gain. So they're kind of different scenarios. Does that make sense? Yeah. I should have let Annika answer, sorry. I could not talk. Any additional questions? Like Colin, my good buddy Colin, we'll be around here afterwards too, so you're more than happy to come up and ask us questions.
Yeah,
Annika,
thanks so much for your time.
And with that, and with that, we'll introduce Todd Hume on the next topic.
That's not going to work. There we go. Okay. You all hear me without the mic? Probably think so. Shoot. Really hate getting stuck back here. My name is Todd Hume. I work at a law firm called Witherspoon Brajcich McPhee. My practice includes real estate. I do a lot of land use work. I do a lot of municipal law work. And I do some corporate work. And I also teach as an adjunct at the Gonzaga Law School, where I teach land use and zoning, public lands law. This semester I'm teaching municipal law. And I've also taught real estate transactions in the past. I was asked to give an update on changes in Washington state land use, well, not land use, but Washington law. And so we have done a bit, or I did a bit of sort of cherry picking too, in terms of what I wanted to show you. Okay, for some of you, you have seen some of these changes. I'm going back to some of the legislative changes back to about 2024, 25. 2026 is the year that a lot of these changes need to be implemented through the local jurisdictions, so that's why I'm bringing them to your attention. There's also one bill that is currently in front of the House. It passed the Senate. It's currently in front of the House that has some pretty profound impacts if it keeps going as well. The drivers, right? So the drivers are population growth, housing shortages, and affordability challenges. We now see that in the last maybe 20 years on this side of the state. Land use in large part is driven by what happens on the I-5 corridor in this state. The Growth Management Act, and I want to provide some context here. The Growth Management Act was adopted in 1990 as a reaction to what essentially was going on in the I-5 corridor. People were leaving downtown areas and they were going to the suburbs, right? And as they did that, and as they built out in the suburbs, that required them to duplicate all the municipal services they just left. So it required them to put in pipes and pumps and sidewalks, and it also required them to get into their automobiles and drive back into downtown every day, causing congestion. So the Growth Management Act was a way to coordinate all of the different jurisdictions involved, again, think I-5 corridor, around planning together for growth. It was born out of compromise. As you might imagine, this was not something that everybody welcomed. Imagine living in Ferry County, imagine living in Colville, imagine living in Pullman, wherever, in the late 80s. You probably didn't see the Growth Management Act as something that was terribly important for the legislature to thrust upon you. Again, a series of compromises. What gets me to these changes, the changes that we are now seeing are a very different departure from what the Growth Management Act was originally intended as. The Growth Management Act, as it was originally written, gave authority to local jurisdictions to decide how to plan in their communities. Again, the city of Newport in Pend Oreille County was going to plan very differently than the city of Seattle, the city of Tacoma, the large municipalities, right? And so it was very much of a bottom-up structure. What we see now, particularly with some of these changes, is a top-down. So this is not totally uncommon. Oregon does this. Oregon just tells the counties and the cities what their land use laws are going to look like. In Washington, we haven't done that until 2 years ago. The state has gotten tired, collectively, the state has gotten tired of waiting for local jurisdictions to plan, particularly around housing and particularly around density. So in 2024, we began to see laws, which we'll talk about in a second, related to requiring local jurisdictions to include density in their residential zones. Okay, House Bill 1110, what they call the middle housing legislation. This was passed in 2024, only affects single-family zones. It mandates, again, this is a complete departure from where we had been, it mandates cities to permit various middle housing forms in single-family zones. So you used to have single-family zones, and then they would have multifamily zones, and you might have various versions of the multifamily zones, right? Now, the state has mandated that if you have something called residential, it allows what they call middle housing. So think cottages, fourplexes, duplexes, those kinds of things. Cities must allow 2 to 4 units per lot, and near transit facilities, up to 6 units a lot. Again, the idea is to push density to where the municipal services are. So think about Seattle in terms of where the light rail is. There's more services around the light rail, conceivably, than there are away from the light rail. So they're going to push density to where that is. One of the problems, particularly we have in Eastern Washington with this, is that this overnight mandate doesn't necessarily take into consideration the infrastructure we have in the ground or on the ground in reality. Right, so now all of a sudden you're creating multifamily housing essentially on these lots in single-family zones, but you may or may not have the right size sewer pipes. You may or may not have the right size water pipes. The infrastructure in terms of roads may or may not accommodate what you're going to do. So think of yin and yang. I always think of yin and yang. Yin and yang, where there's chaos, and it definitely breeds some chaos, there's opportunity. All right, so you all need to try and figure out where are the opportunities in the chaos. What does this mean, and how do we sort of navigate people through it? A number of these changes relate to housing. I appreciate that a lot of you, most of you, don't work in the housing sphere. Some of them are directly related to commercial, but what happens to housing eventually happens to commercial, right? Lots of commercial opportunities need rooftops. So that's why I wanted to bring to your attention some of these housing bills. This is the bill that is currently in front of the House. Tomorrow, I looked it up today. Tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. there is an executive session in the House Committee on Local Government to discuss this bill. It's already passed the Senate. Remember, the last bill we just discussed in 2024 mandated certain housing types in single-family zones or in residential zones. Now the legislature is moving to say, okay, we are now going to force local communities to put in housing in commercial and mixed-use zones. Mixed use is not an uncommon thing for this, right? We've put housing in mixed use zones for years. That's the whole idea. You have housing, but it's always been above commercial. One of the things that this bill intends to do is wipe that out. So think about the struggling strip mall that has Class C tenants in it, now can have housing with no ground floor requirement for commercial. You just have apartments, right? Again, doesn't really take into consideration the location, the surrounding utilities, et cetera. So it seems as though there may be some chaos with this, but also some opportunities. House Bill 1096 also passed the legislature last year, allows administrative lot splitting. For any of you who work sort of in permitting, there is a push at the state level, finally, to streamline permitting, and this is an example of it. So this allows you to split your lot only once. You can't. This is not an end run around the subdivision laws, but allows you to split your lot once administratively. So if you've got extra property off the back, on the back of your house, you could split that lot in theory, create a new lot back there as long as you give it access, and build a house. House Bill 1337, accessory dwelling units. Similarly, I don't know if any of you have ever looked into how to permit an accessory dwelling unit at your house. Every jurisdiction was different. Sometimes they say, well, it had to be attached. Sometimes they say, well, it's got to be apart from the house. There was always a requirement that the owner live in the house, the owner of the property live in the house, and they can rent out the ADU. Now, those requirements are gone, allowing at least 2 ADUs per lot and removing the owner occupancy requirements. So in theory, if you've got a house with a garage and you want to build the garage out into 2 ADUs and you want to move, you've got 3 units to rent. $5184 parking reform. It caps residential parking minimums. It limits commercial parking requirements. The city of Spokane, some of you have probably already seen this, the city of Spokane just did away with parking entirely in the city of Spokane. There's still performance standards if you're going to create a lot, right? There's still performance standard on what the lot looks like, but there's no minimum parking requirements in the city of Spokane for any use. So the city of Spokane sort of went beyond what the state was otherwise requiring, which they can do. By the way, this is another example of taking a finite resource, land, and taking away the idea that you're going to have to dedicate a big portion of your project to surface parking. Now, as an owner, right, you got to figure out, okay, how are they going to want to be my customers if they got to park far away? Are they going to want to live here if they have to park far away? There are other considerations, but at least the local jurisdiction is putting that back on the landowner to try and figure out. House Bill 1217, rent stabilization and housing stability. These are a series of enactments that culminated in one House bill that caps annual rent increases, 7% plus CPI. I think Commerce came out and said that means this year a 9.6% cap on increases in rents. This does not affect commercial leases. Again, I appreciate that most of you in here are working with commercial projects. But again, it does affect residential leases, and when you're putting together a pro forma that's a mixed-use project maybe, this has got to go into your thinking about how that project pencils, right? Expansion beyond cities. Counties may allow middle housing in urban growth areas. Okay, this changes, at least for the city of Spokane, where our urban growth areas are located in the county. This has some dramatic impacts. Again, meaning that those UGAs can have fourplexes, duplexes, or cottage-style housing. Right, it just increases the densities in the UGA. It does have implications, I think, on the next cycle of UGA amendments as to whether or not they'll be necessary. We haven't seen that yet. I think it's relevant to note that cities retain the ability to regulate otherwise in terms of performance standards, height, design standards, setbacks, infrastructure, environmental protections, et cetera. And then here's the chaos and the opportunity. I'm not going to read all that to you. You can read that yourself. But there are implications for property owners and developers. There are new opportunities. I think the residential side affects what you all do in the commercial world and vice versa. So as this rolls out this year and next year, meaning a lot of these reforms that came in 2024, 2025 are being baked into comprehensive plans in 26 and 27, right? So a lot of this will really come to bear in the next year or two. I think it will be one of the most profound changes we've seen in land use law since 1990, since the Growth Management Act itself. Looking ahead, I think that we're going to see more of this kind of pressure from the state. I don't know if pressure is the right word, but frankly, the state's just got sick and tired of local jurisdictions not putting more density in their cities. There is a natural resistance to do that. You might remember not so many years ago, the city of Spokane Valley was like, absolutely not, we are not going to be the apartment city. Right? Somebody else has got to do it. We're not going to, I mean, there is some zoning that allowed for apartments there, but they didn't like to permit new apartment projects. And they weren't going to amend their comp plan to do it either. They wanted the city of Liberty Lake to do it, or the city of Spokane. There is a certain sense that you don't want to have too much multifamily in your city. So a lot of cities, no matter where they were just not, they were just saying, well, we're going to let somebody else solve the housing crisis. So Department of Commerce, the governor, and the Department of Commerce stepped in and said, okay, well, we're going to find some legislators to carry these bills that will require you to do these things. So a drastic departure from where we began with the Growth Management Act in 1990. That's all I have. Any questions? Yeah, maybe, or maybe I just don't understand what you mean by that. I mean, it's shifting to be forced upon us in terms of how we're planning. The local, so let's take the county, for example. The county used to hold meetings for almost a year through the Planning Commission, the city too, and decide, okay, where are we going to put the new urban growth area? Where are we going to, change these different zones? What do we have to plan for? And the Growth Management Act required everybody to do that in light of all of the assumptions that go into development, meaning where are the utilities, where's the road infrastructure, et cetera, et cetera. Now we're just being told, okay, whatever you did before, we're going to double it. Whatever your numbers were, we're going to double it, or we're going to triple it. So in some senses, we still have control over, the local communities, still have control over where that stuff is. We just don't have as much control over how dense it is.
Well, that seems to me to be driven by another force other than the market.
Oh, okay, yeah, yep.
Typically, if we invest in area or property in outcome,
Yeah.
we like to know, don't change the rules on it. Because we've got a pro forma that's put together that has a plan attached to it. And if you start changing the rules on it, the risk factors go up exponentially. So, you know, I don't know about the rest of you, but I typically like to take the path of least resistance in planning and creating purpose. So this just makes you want to step back and say, maybe not, you know, just maybe not.
Yeah, I think it's going to make the next 10 years hard to put pro formas on until you see how it all shakes out, how the community reacts to it, you know, where the growth is occurring and not occurring. Again, part of the idea is to make things cheaper, which if you own land, you don't necessarily want them to be cheaper, right? You want your land to be more valuable if you improve it. But if everybody else is zoned similarly, then there's more opportunities for people to buy somebody else's property and do it there.
I think your statement, you make a comment that the city of Spokane Valley maybe doesn't want apartments, everything with more apartments. And you take that in a broader sense and say that's true in different areas, different situations, but that's true. Isn't it true that the state of Washington, which has now implemented some of these H&Es that you're talking about, that they have been implemented by the local jurisdictions until June, July of this year?
That's right.
So, I'm just kind of curious of your take, as far as like 1096 allows a lot to be split lots. That's statewide, that has been implemented by the local jurisdictions. And then also like HB 1337, ADU reform, where they'll allow ADUs where they own apartments as private parking, and some of the different intricacies of that development. How do you perceive the implementation by the local jurisdictions? Are we going to have different rules in every jurisdiction that we have to navigate?
I would expect that. I mean, what's coming down from the state in these bills that are codified are bare minimums, right? It's still giving to the local jurisdiction the ability to put their personal touch on it. For example, the city of Spokane went above and beyond with the parking, right? I mean, they just got it all parking altogether. They didn't have to go that far, but they did. So it will look different depending on the jurisdiction. But at least we know, okay, there's a bare minimum standard that all communities will have to comply with. And the city of Spokane's comp plan will be adopted, I think, at the end of this year. Maybe it'll push into 27. So yeah, we haven't seen these. They're still in the discussion phase for sure.
Does this sort of tell us that the urban boundaries won't be expanded?
I wonder about that. I don't know. That's a great question. I mean, it seems to me that with all the new density, it's going to be hard. You know, what you always have to justify, you get the Office of the OFM numbers, right? Office of Financial Management numbers, and they'll say, okay, well, you know, Spokane needs to plan in the next 20 years. Spokane needs to plan for, 30,000 new residents. But now we've got all these zones that can absorb all that. And so are we going to need, the old mechanism was, okay, well, go draw another UGA and we'll put that there because we can't change what's already in place. Well, now what's in place, those densities have doubled, tripled, and I just wonder if there's going to be any point, or if people do it, will it be defensible? I mean, you'll have groups like FutureWise that'll say, wait a minute, you didn't need to push those UGAs out. You could have accommodated, throughout Spokane, for example.
Todd, I have a question about splitting the lot. You said you could do it one time administratively. Is there now no size requirement with that? Or are they requiring a certain frontage access you mentioned, but can you deliver a 2,500 square foot lot with a separate parcel number without any short plat or?
Yeah, good question. I don't know what the end result of that is going to look like. The state has only said if you can do it, on your property. You might have a piece that's not big enough. But if you can do it on your property, there's an administrative path to doing it, as opposed to, because heretofore we'd have to go in and do a short plat, right? Which is not terribly complicated. It's not as complicated as a long plat, but it's not as easy as an administrative split. Yeah, right, exactly. Well, I mean, it's law, so, you're supposed to, every jurisdiction has been, essentially told by the legislature they need to become compliant. How quickly that happens might be a strategy. That might be sort of interesting to watch, because I could see some jurisdictions sort of holding out and slow rolling it just to see what was going to go on elsewhere and what they should do. Ultimately, they will have to become compliant. I don't remember, I think at least in one or two of the bills there was a compliance date. I think I'm way over my time here. No, I'm okay? Okay. Any other questions? Okay, well, thank you. And I think I have the distinction of introducing, there's a panel up next, is that right? Thank you.
So on our panel, we've got Eric Nelson, who's going to talk to us about the office and industrial market. David Fritchie with Tri-Cities, our guy on the ground. Chad Carper, who does retail basically everywhere. And Mary Kinebaum, who's out of our Coeur d'Alene office. So thank you guys for being here. Let's go start with you, Eric. Let's talk about the office market. Leading up to the event today, we've been talking about where we were and where we are now, particularly when you think about COVID, which was the start of it almost 6 years ago. On the office side, it's been a real journey, hasn't it been?
Yeah, it's been quite interesting over the last 6 years. Everybody thinks about, CBD and all the headlines of the issues downtown and things like that. But in reality, Spokane has, I would say, weathered the storm better than most markets. Nice thing is we don't have a huge tech presence, so we're not seeing layoffs. The biggest vacancies we saw were from call centers out in Liberty Lake, one downtown, Travelers Insurance. But it's been able to be backfilled fairly well, and mostly in the submarkets, we've been able to actually have great success in backfilling most of those spaces. So the market's been pretty good overall, and downtown we do still see quite a bit of vacancy, but overall, I think it's better than it has been.
Yeah, we saw it top out. We're tracking about 30% last year, but we've seen that come off a little bit. When we talk about the office market, all across our markets, quality has been the driving force. But downtown in Spokane, our vacancy, call it 24 to 25%. That's not exactly what it is, though, when you look at the product that's available. Not all of these buildings are really probably meant to be office in the long term. When you back that out, those assets that we think maybe 5 years from now, 10 years from now, certainly are not going to be office, that vacancy looks a lot better than it does, at least the top line number does.
Yeah, the vacancy, when you kind of back out those buildings that might be multifamily in the future or some sort of other use, we probably see a true vacancy around 17, 18%. And when you actually look at it, there's success stories in that. The Bank of America building, the OCH building, Watrust East, they've had great success in backfilling their space because of the flight to quality and the amenities that they put into their properties, such as conference rooms, workout facilities, restaurants, golf simulator bays, different things that actually help attract tenants. And tenants want to move there to be able to attract talent.
Yeah, I mean, that dynamic's happening in Tri-Cities as well, David, right? I mean, it's quality's winning out, and there are some older product that maybe just can't compete over a long period of time. It's almost like a natural cycle for the office product.
Yeah, I think in Tri-Cities we've got basically two different markets. We have North Richland, which is Pacific Northwest National Labs, Hanford adjacent, really driven by federal funds, and then we have a lot more in town in all three of the cities where it's your more professional type office. In town, we're seeing vacancies about 9%. So office is good there, and we're not building any more office for whatever reason in Tri-Cities. Probably just the risk of work from home or a hybrid work, but we put 10.1 million new square feet of industrial that we built in the past 10 years, and only 1.1 in the past 10 years of office. So not a lot of building going on, but compared to nationally, very low vacancy in Tri-Cities.
Yeah, I mean, the new office construction in our region is effectively zero unless you've got an owner user, you've got a medical deal to do. Same dynamic in North Idaho?
Absolutely, yeah. You know, what we're seeing in North Idaho is Eric, it's interesting, talks about a lack of quality inventory or the flight to quality, I should say. We're seeing much of that in North Idaho, you know, that space that is 5,000 square feet and less. We're really struggling to see quality inventory if you're working with a tenant or a buyer to place them. There's very little spec construction in North Idaho in general for the office product. So we continue to see a rather low vacancy rate overall. You know, we sit around 5 or 6%, which is, you know, differs from the Tri-Cities and the Spokane market and the office sector. So it's really interesting to see, you know, we're through a period of stabilization now, where we would have seen, you know, sub 2% vacancy just a couple of years ago. Now we're seeing 5 or 6%. So it's a healthy market, but we certainly lack in quality inventory, and we're really not seeing a whole lot of new construction.
Chad, if office is kind of off the ropes, you know, back on its feet, but maybe has a way to go, I mean, retail is really in a healthy place. When you think about maybe what the narrative was when COVID hit, you know, e-commerce is the future. You saw major department stores go under, big box vacancies, but now I look at the market and it feels really vibrant, and there's a lot of new development. I mean, talk a little bit about that.
It's chicken. I mean, who wants more chicken?
I know.
Chicken, car washes, and fuel. I mean, that seems to be the exciting
Do you have a favorite
stuff out there.
chicken's place yet, or?
Oh, I think you go up North Division. I mean, how many chicken places do you have in a row?
Yeah, my kid asked me, he said, Dad, do you know that the Raising Cane's has the best chicken strips? I said, really, where'd you hear that? It's like my friend from school. He's like, can we go? I said, absolutely not. It's way too far north. But,
and I think the chicken's still expanding. I think there's 3 or 4 that are going to be popping up here pretty quick. But on the retail front, there is a growth. There is still urgency of retail wanting to be there. It's a lot of single tenant quick serve restaurants or QSRs that are out there looking. And fuel is expanding like crazy.
it feels like there's a lot of development happening in Tri-Cities, though. I mean, is that fair to say? I mean, yes, single tenant, but also just some other developments happening.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
New development, redevelopment. You had a project or did recently that you were involved there with on Canal, a couple.
Yeah, a couple on Canal. There's the Burlington Coat that's being redeveloped. I've heard Nordstrom Rack might be going there. Road 68 is always expanding. Broadmoor, Road 100, and then the Costco going out in West Richland. It's a big dynamic. I'd be curious to see what you were seeing on boots on the ground over there.
You can't get retail space on Road 68. You can't get it on Dupertail, Queensgate. I mean, there's no vacancy there. And actually kind of very slow development due to municipalities or the Kennewick Irrigation District hanging on to land that I don't know what they want to do with, but those areas are highly sought after.
What's your opinion of out by the airport? I see a lot of activity out there as well.
That's a little bit difficult for access, and it's a little bit further away from the affluent side of town. But like light industrial, or you know, like the car auction, the private airplane hangars that are out there, hotels, Columbia Basin College is still expanding. So I think that's more slow, and there's opportunity there. At least you can buy land there.
You can get land, and then up off of Southridge, there's been a push, but it seems to have slowed down up there as well.
Yeah, and I'm told yesterday, I can announce that, because this was within our firm, that the VA hospital is going to fund. It's going to be there in South Kennewick, so that's a massive project.
It'll be great for chicken.
Yeah, we'll get some chicken out there, and pickleball.
Who
That's
can
the
get
other
there
thing
first?
in
Yeah,
Tri-Cities.
we'll get to pickleball.
Yeah.
You know, of all the markets we're going to talk about today, I'm not sure there's been one that's seen the growth and the kind of velocity that North Idaho has seen. When you think about the retail side of things, it's gone from kind of a smaller market to now it feels almost fully mature talk about a little bit, Mary, about what you've seen in the retail side of things the last 2 or 3 years, and then where you think it might be going, just because accessible land is getting harder to find, at least quality sites are getting harder to find.
Absolutely. I think there's something to be said about wanting to be in Coeur d'Alene, have that Coeur d'Alene address for many of these retailers, whether it's regional or national or otherwise, and generally still want to be within Kootenai County. And so, you know, no better place to expand other than the Prairie, or no better availability. I think where we would have seen these sites that are, you know, 5, 10, 15, 20, 40, that hundreds of acres previously, we're now seeing annexed into the city and now serviced. So it's interesting to look at the development of and the completion of the Highway 41 and I-90 interchange that should be expected to be complete this year, and then infrastructure improvements along 41 as well. It's certainly the area that we have to expand into, and with that now we see 1-acre sites or pad sites now available for development, and spec construction as well, retail spec construction. I think of early dawn development, Prairie Crossing, or otherwise going in there. Certainly QSR quick service restaurants as well. Chad can speak to some of that and the chicken that we're seeing along Highway 41, but it's interesting to see, you know, McDonald's, Jersey Mike's, et cetera, really putting their radars on our market.
Mary, when you say that they want that Idaho address, what's driving that?
You know, a lot of that is, and I know it's, you know, you hear this over and over, tax and regulation. You know, we see new bills introduced in Washington, as we heard a little bit of today. And it's, you know, for one reason or another, some businesses want to be in Washington, certainly, but some really pinpoint to say, well, gosh, I could save hundreds of thousands of dollars in tax if I'm in Idaho. So, you know, you see a lot of users looking for just an Idaho address, or, you know, 1,000 square feet of office just so they can run everything through that office, retail or otherwise. So it's really, it's a lot of different factors: population, tax and regulation, and otherwise that we're seeing in North Idaho.
On the retail side, all three of you would be interested to kind of hear your thoughts on this. You know, we track a lot of different kind of sub-asset classes, and one of those that we track can be that larger retail vacancy called 15,000 feet or over. Spokane County, by example, we've got, I think, 16 of those, and those are obviously struggling. It takes longer to find a tenant for those, and we've seen an influx with the Rite Aids of the world. I think there's 3 on the South Hill now available. You have to have the ability to reimagine your space a little bit. I think if you're a landlord now, the traditional users, while out there, may not be the right fit, because, you know, you need your center to be a place where I park my car and I'm maybe checking off 4 or 5 things on my list of things to do, right?
You want the centers to be where it's an entertainment, or there's something for people to go and do, and they can hit all those segments in one fell swoop. The big boxes, the Rite Aids or the Joannes of the world, you're looking at the discount retailers, the Rosses, the TJ Maxxes, the Dollar Trees, Planet Fitness, and those are going to be spaces that are going to be challenging to reimagine or to redo. You're going to have to put a little bit of money into them, but, you know, Lincoln Heights is a great example of, you know, redeveloping a project with the Trader Joe's and the restaurants that are out in front there, and then across the street if they ever get, you know, the Douglas property figured out, but they'll get there.
That'll happen eventually.
Yeah.
When I think about reimagining space, I think about industrial, Eric. So, I mean, generally, if office was on the ropes and now stabilized, retail's been really done really, really well, really healthy. Industrial's kind of been the constant that we've seen the last decade, certainly the last 5 years. Vacancies are up some, but maybe now we've got a healthier market, but it's pretty tight across the board until you get to that larger format, right?
Yeah, I mean, historically, the last 8 to 10 years, we've seen quite an influx in industrial across the whole country. And, you know, we've seen a huge amount of the distribution centers sit empty that were developed, like on the West Plains with Panettone, like the Douglas Legacy Park, some properties off of Barker and Garland. They've sat vacant for several years now, and we're starting to finally see some absorption there, which has helped, but I agree it's kind of a healthy market. Mary, what are you seeing on the Idaho side?
Absolutely, yeah. I think the interesting piece to that is we were so underbuilt just a few years ago, and we're not overbuilt, certainly, but we're seeing quite a bit more inventory, certainly delivered in the past year or two, especially along the state line area. I think really what we're seeing, at least for rates, is is more of a stabilization than anything else. You know, we'd see huge increases in rental rates and otherwise during COVID era when we were 0.8% vacancy, which is crazy. Now we're sitting at a healthier 5 or 6%. But we're certainly seeing a bit of a stabilization where we're not seeing that increased extreme growth in those increase in those rental rates.
We're still seeing very low vacancy. A lot of owner user, Amazon and Darigold put about 3 million square feet of new building on the market. But still, in Tri-Cities, anything with a roll-up door, from flex to massive, buildings that are acres inside, it's just continued to boom there. And it's the cheap power, it's the food distribution and the cold storage and the food processing, as well as it's kind of becoming a logistics hub down there.
Yeah, I mean, I say vacancy's gone up in industrial. We're still sub 4 everywhere other than, say, over 40,000 square feet. That reimagining of that space, though, I mean, some of the quote-unquote success stories we've seen have been the pickleball use in Post Falls. Our office, Jay Carson, did a baseball deal out off of Barker. I don't think these landlords developed these sites thinking that would be the end user, but they've had to become flexible. We got a little bit overbuilt, and we've repped clients outside of this market. We just did a deal down in Sparks, Nevada, late last year. It's the first time we've done a survey where we had to cut down the options that we presented them because that market got oversaturated. So it just feels like some of we're in a much better place in similar markets to ours where we're not quite as overbuilt. But what do you see that quote-unquote big box industrial space going in the next 24 months?
I think that we're going to continue to see some absorption. I mean, McKinstry taking quite a bit of the Panattoni space really helped. I mean, the nice thing is, the landlords that develop these buildings, they're very stable. They can sit there for a long time. Most of them were built in cash, so they can sit there and create deals like Barker Logistics Center where they can make a deal happen at a different rental rate than maybe somebody like a Panattoni that has financing. But I think overall we're probably going to continue to see absorption since we aren't seeing any new builds currently going on the market. The new builds that are occurring right now are actually more in that flex, call it 1,200 to 10,000 square foot space, and I think that's probably where we're going to see a little bit of overbuild and some adjustments in rental rates to kind of flatten over the next couple of years just because there's going to be more product on the market.
Yeah, we got a real need for that, though. I mean, that smaller bay, I like that, anything with an overhead door. I think a consistent area that we've seen since, for the last 5 years has been land. I mean, in all of our markets, it's if you've got good dirt, you're going to find somebody who wants to either develop it or buy it. And the owner-user side of things in our market, it feels, Eric, that we can't find the dirt fast enough. We just did a deal with FedEx Freight out off of Hayford Road, south of the freeway, 25 acres, a little over $5 a foot. There's sites out there, but the cost is going up. But owner users King Beverage comes to mind. There's lots of these examples. It doesn't feel like that's slowing down even with elevated interest rates and all of that.
I don't see it slowing down with the owner users specifically. I mean, I don't see many developers being able to do spec building nowadays because of the price per square foot. I mean, we're seeing stuff in Airway Heights for industrial going at over $5 a square foot. And Barker and Garland, we just did a deal for AMI Metals, and they paid $8.21 a foot when they could have bought dirt for $1.50 during COVID. So, I mean, land is hard to come by in Spokane with everything going on, kind of like what Todd spoke about with the urban growth boundary. That's getting taken up, actually.
Yeah, and that's the same dynamic in Tri-Cities and North Idaho, too. I mean, a lot of the low-hanging fruit is gone, but there's still a lot of demand, on the owner-user side, certainly, but it's getting a little more difficult for developers to make sure that they can pencil these deals just with where land prices are going. Is that fair?
Yeah, it's been the biggest jump we've seen in prices since COVID is just on bare land. We were $3-4 a square foot for larger parcels like that. Now it's $5-6 a square foot, so we doubled.
Absolutely. Yeah, we're seeing that in North Idaho as well. I mean, really the only area we have to give on is land, but we're continuing to see those prices go up. It's hard for many developers to make sense of both construction costs, land costs, impact fees from cities or otherwise really affecting development projects. We've seen some very large increases in land value, especially state line area, for example. Anything that's annexed and serviced, I mean, you see where we would have been $2 to $4 a square foot in state line area. Now we're $7, $8, $9, $10 a square foot, $20 a square foot along Highway 41, where we weren't even, annexed and serviced in some of those areas a couple of years ago. And I think of one deal recently for a industrial site we signed in Hayden, or we got done at $13 a square foot just for industrial. So we're certainly seeing that increase.
Chad, you're probably laughing at those land values when I think about some of these smaller single-tenant QSR sites. Raising Cane's is the first one that jumps to mind. I think about ICCU's acquisition on the South Hill. I mean, I believe both of those top $70 a foot.
They do, and there might be a couple others that are going to be coming up as well here shortly. But yeah,
Well, you can't tell us.
I can't tell you yet.
I love this is Chad.
Yeah.
He's been
Let's
all-
talk next week.
Can't tell you.
Those nationals
This is
pay
how
more.
rumors get started.
But Chad, you're seeing maybe triple digits on the South Hill, right?
Triple digits, there'll be a deal closing that'll be triple digits for the dirt. Yeah. And Raising Cane's was $62 a square foot for 30,000 square feet up on North Division to buy raw dirt. Yeah. And so it's just fascinating the value that these tenants are paying for the dirt, the car washes, the chicken guys, and the numbers that the Chick-fil-A ground leases are throwing around anywhere from 200 to 300 grand a year is just astronomical.
Wow, that's crazy that it's just so different, right? Location.
Location, and then just the operator that's going in there, or the operation of it. And there's the low-hanging fruit idea that they're gone. It seems to move. Where's the next spot going to be? And there's a lot of projects coming up. In Coeur d'Alene, there's the one at Kathleen and 95 with Parkwood. Moses Lake has a lot of activity on it, which is surprising. But there's a demand for retail there. There's no vacancy basically in retail there. Tri-Cities, you've got Road 68 in Broadmoor. Yakima, a 13-acre project is coming online as well.
What are your top lease retail rates, like per square foot per building, that you're seeing in Spokane?
Oh gosh, if it's just straight retail, you're $20 to $30 a square foot. If you throw a drive-through on it, you go up by $10 a square foot. If it's a build-to-suit, you're seeing everything from $60 to $80 a square foot.
And we're topping out about 50 down there, which when I started in 2018, 30 was the ceiling, right? Then with $30 a square foot, now it's $50 a square foot for good retail.
It can be really demanding, and if you do a build-to-suit for when Starbucks was really active, or Chipotle, you're up in the $70 to $80 a square foot. Yeah.
My last question, I'll let Eric answer this because I think we're coming up on our time, and I'm sure everyone's getting thirsty. I know I am. The investment market. I know we all trade on investment sales. I think you and I right now are particularly heavy with that. It's been remarkable to see the activity on the investment side. I think when you and Mary brought it up, the cost of land, cost of construction, you couple that with trying to finance those new projects, the existing product is looking increasingly attractive for investors. You've got ideally stable tenancy, stable income, but man, even some projects that have short-term leases or hair on them, you're getting multiple offers on, quite frankly, investments that maybe 2 years ago, I think you and I would have thought are going to suffer or kind of lag on the market for a period of time. We're just not seeing that.
No, the investment market, industrial and retail seem to be pretty strong still, right? But I think we're going to start to see a lot more office transactions. Those obviously aren't going to trade at the cap rates we're seeing for industrial or retail, but they're going to stabilize, and I think we're going to see a lot more office transactions. But it's incredible, the investment activity when people are ready to actually move their money. We've seen a lot of loosening up and a lot of investment sale transactions starting to occur over the last 4 or 5 months. But I do think there's quite a bit of buyers out there that actually really want to buy value add, and they're looking at office right now. So.
Well, look, I think the takeaway from us, and certainly on the brokerage side, and as Gordon said at the beginning, how's the real estate market? Well, it depends. And there's a lot of factors. We all know that. You're in real estate or deal with commercial real estate on a regular basis. But I used to be a commodity trader, and one of the kind of mantras we had was, you've got to go make your market. There's a market in any market, up, down, static, and we're seeing that. Across these asset classes, they're all in different places, some a little bit better than others, but we're seeing activity. It's been really encouraging, and I think you just have to be, both as brokers, but also as a firm and as clients, you just have to be flexible, and you have to make your market. So, but with that, I want to say thank you for being here. I want to make a quick thank you to Michaela and Ronnie, and everybody else who was involved. Certainly Holly, Lisa, and Madison for helping set this up today, but Ronnie and Michaela have been involved since the very beginning. I would like to not thank Casey Brazil, who this was his idea, and he has not had to say a single word. So no thank you to Casey, but thank you again for being here. I hope you found some value. It's great to see all of you, and we'll see you at the bar. Thank you.